Today, I'm breaking down my Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K cinema rig. Let's go. So before we jump into my rig, I want to explain a little bit what a cinema camera entails, because a cinema camera is a little bit different than your typical, hybrid photo video shooter, mirrorless or DSLR or whatever. Oftentimes, those cameras, they're specifically geared towards both photo and video, sometimes equally, sometimes more weighted towards photo, but a cinema camera is specifically for video. My Pocket 4K does have a take a photo still button type thing, but it's not really geared towards that at all. It just takes a DNG still, and since you're shooting shutter angle instead of shutter speed, your shutter speed is going to be too slow for anything sharp. It's just going to be super blurry, and changing that is kind of a hassle because you want it to be in a shutter angle when you're shooting video. You want to maintain that 180-degree rule regardless of what frame rate you're shooting at. Cinema cameras are typically going to have something like false color, allowing you to judge exposure and make sure you aren't blowing out in the highlights, you're not underexposing your skin tones, things like that, just to make sure you have a well-exposed image. Autofocus isn't really going to be something that is prioritized in a cinema camera, if at all. Pocket 4K has terrible autofocus, and that's kind of expected because when you are on a bigger production and a bigger shoot, you're locking off focus and you typically have a first AC pulling focus for you. So autofocus isn't really something you want to rely on, especially because it might hunt in the middle of a take. If that take is really good, it just ruin the take. And so, yeah, you just don't want to rely on autofocus. Which is why you'll also have focus peaking, which allows you to make sure that your subject is tack sharp. In-body image stabilization won't be there at all if it's a good cinema camera, because that's not how cinema cameras are stabilized. They're stabilized with tripods, they're stabilized with easy rigs, glide cams, things like that. And you're not going to want to have that image stabilization that's kind of fighting you almost while you're shooting. So there are many other things that make a cinema camera, but right now I'm shooting on the Pocket 4K, and it is a fantastic cinema camera, kind of an entry-level cinema camera, but it's really amazing for the price. I'll probably be doing a review of my Pocket 4K at some point down the road, so make sure you subscribe and pop that notification bell while you're at it. Alright, so at the center of the whole operation, obviously, is the Pocket 4K, but around that, I've put it into a small rig cage. This is the full cage, not a half cage or anything like that, because I want to have the most flexibility. If I ever want to add like an extra side handle or things like that, I'm able to do that if needed. And moving upwards, I've got a top handle that's mounted with a NATO rail. This allows me to easily add and remove the handle as needed without having to pull out an Allen key and unscrew it, screw it back on. It just makes everything so much easier. Now, attached to the front of the handle, I've got a little articulating monitor mount. This allows me to easily add my FeelWorld T7 monitor. It's a cheap monitor, it's not that great at all. I'm definitely planning on replacing it with something else at some point, just because it's not very accurate, and it's good for pulling focus, composition, things like that, false color, but nothing else, and definitely planning on swapping that out pretty soon. And by the way, everything mentioned in this video will be linked in the description down below. Now, moving back down, we've got the small rig T5 SSD mount. This allows me to put in a T5, lock it in, as well as lock in the cable so it doesn't slip out while I'm recording, and it's just a really nice little add-on. Now, I do record with T5 external drives because CFast is very expensive, and just being able to edit off of the drives after I've finished shooting is just very nice. Now, on the other end of the top of this cage, I've got the cold shoe shifter thingamawhatsit, and basically that allows me to have a cold shoe mount because it's covered up by the T5 mount. Now, moving to the side, I've got the area locating top handle, which I'm using as a side handle because initially I decided to use it on the top, but then I realized it kind of conflicted with my monitor mount, and so I decided to just use it as a side handle, and it's working pretty well for that. Now, moving to the other side of the Pocket 4K, I've got a cable clamp that clamps both the HDMI and USB-C cables. This basically ensures that they don't get yanked out while you're filming, which is pretty important. Now, moving to the front of the camera, I've got the Metabones 0.64 EF speed booster. I believe it's like the Ultra XL or something like that. But basically, it adds, I believe, about a stop of light, and also reduces the focal length by 0.64, making it a little bit bigger than Super 35, I believe, if my math is correct, which it might not be, but it's definitely bigger than APS-C because the lens I use, the Sigma 1835, is really only meant for crop sensors, and so when you put this on at 18 millimeters, it really vignettes, but from 24 to 35-ish, it's very, very usable, and it's a fantastic lens. Additionally, connected to the Metabones, I've got the Metabones to cage connector thing, which basically helps kind of lock in that Metabones adapter and not let it really flex on the camera, because the camera is, I believe, made out of plastic, and so when you add heavy lenses, it becomes a bit of a problem, and so having this little support thing is very, very nice. And moving below the camera, we've got a rail mount system attachment thing. I can't remember what this one's called exactly, but it's a 15mm rod mount, and right now I've got 12-inch rods as well as 18-inch rods. I prefer the 12 because it's shorter and I don't really need the 18-inch unless I have like a matte box, which I don't have yet, so I don't really need it, and I bought it anyway initially, and I was like, this is way too long, so I switched. But that's very nice for both adding the battery on the back, which we'll talk about in a sec, as well as the lens support in the front. The Sigma 18-35 is quite the heavy lens, so having a lens support is really, really important. The thing just slides in the front, move up the little support, tighten it up, and you're good to go. Now, moving to the back, we've got, I believe it's like a Camvate battery plate mount thing, V-mount battery plate. And what's cool about this is it has both USB out as well as 7.2 and 12 volt out. So I can power both the monitor as well as the camera with this single battery, which is very, very nice because I don't have to maintain two batteries, one for the monitor and one for my camera. The battery I've got is the B&O Comer 190 watt hour battery, and it is amazing. It allows me to record forever, and it's just awesome, and it just slides on there. The only issue I've had is sometimes it kind of gets loose, and I think that's just kind of an issue with V-mount plates, and so every once in a while you just have to, between takes, you just take it off, slam it back on, you're good to go. I wish I didn't have to do that because it's kind of annoying, because sometimes it would like click and then the monitor will die because the monitor doesn't have an internal battery, whereas like the camera does. So the camera's fine because it's charging the whole time and running off of AC power. But when the battery gets disconnected, monitor will die and the camera will keep running, which is fine. But anyway, you have to just add and remove the battery a few times here and there. All right, so let's talk about my cable setup because it's a little bit interesting. I've got a USB-C cable that is the perfect length for going from the SSD to the camera and not having any extra dangling wire. It's absolutely fantastic. I can't remember what it's called, but it's linked in the description. I've also got a power cable that allows me to disconnect the power off the back of it, but not actually remove it from the camera itself because it's kind of finicky to pull that thing off. So that's super handy. Shout out to my guy Michael Tobin for recommending both of those. They're fantastic. His channel is linked in the description. And then my HDMI cable, which is a bit interesting because it is a super thin HDMI cable that I didn't even know HDMI cables could be this thin, but it's fantastic. It allows me to have the length if I need it, if I need to flip the monitor around, which I do occasionally, especially recording these YouTube A-rolls. But A-rolls, it sounds like dinner rolls. But anyway, but it's also fantastic because you can quickly wrap it up and get rid of the extra wire when needed. This cable was recommended to me by my guy Jesse Schroeder, who also was the DP on my film Verso, which you can watch here or whatever, but his channel is linked in the description as well. So as far as things I'd want to change about the setup, right now I'm really loving the setup, but the monitor could definitely use an upgrade, maybe a Shinobi or a Ninja 5, maybe something from Small HD, not sure about that, but definitely want to upgrade that at some point. A follow focus would be very, very nice because right now, just pulling focus on the lens itself isn't the best, so that would be nice to upgrade. Shrinking down the battery would also be nice because I can't really fly with 190 watt hours and I never end up using the full capacity, so having something a little bit smaller, like maybe a 95 or 130, I believe is the other configuration, that would be very, very nice because then I could fly with it. But I thought I'd share a little bit of footage I've shot with this setup. Hope you enjoy. Well, that's it. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked this video and found it helpful in any way, hit that thumbs up button. you enjoy cinematic filmmaking and photography videos, hit that subscribe button and pop that bell. Thanks, and I'll see y'all later. I think we're good. I think that is the end of the video. I finally made it. I've literally recorded this video 3 times. But I love this setup a little bit better. And yeah, hopefully it doesn't blow up in my face. But yeah.